Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about fears. There are things in life that are awesome, and there are things in life that you might be afraid of, things you might be scared of. You might have a certain fear. You might be afraid of dogs, for instance. We have different names for these things, and we describe them in different ways. In this English lesson, I'm going to go through about 30 or so different fears. I'm going to talk about 30 things that people are afraid of. And while I'm doing that, it's more than just a vocabulary lesson. Listen closely to the phrases I use when I'm talking about that. And hopefully this lesson helps you learn just a little bit more English. So there are a few ways to talk about having fears. You can say that you have a fear of something. I put this shopping cart with toilet paper because over a year ago, people had a fear of running out of toilet paper. I'm not sure if you remember in March of 2020, in many countries in the world, you couldn't find toilet paper in the stores because people had a fear of running out of toilet paper. So one of the ways you describe something that you have a fear of is to say you have a fear of it. So people had a fear of running out of toilet paper. More commonly, though, we would probably say that we are scared of something or afraid of something. So let's say that you have a fear of cats. That's kind of a formal way to describe that fear. I have a fear of cats. I have a fear of large animals. It's correct, but we probably wouldn't use that phrase to describe it in everyday English speech. We would probably say that we are scared of something or that we are afraid of something. So me personally, I'm afraid of snakes. I'm scared of snakes. If I was having a more formal conversation, I might say, I have a fear of snakes. But generally, I think I would use afraid of most commonly. I would say I am afraid of snakes, which is true. I am actually afraid of snakes. I should mention, let's move on. We also call these phobias. So a phobia is an irrational fear of something. And I don't actually agree with it being irrational. I don't think my fear of snakes is irrational. When something is irrational, it means it doesn't have logic. I'm just afraid of snakes, and there's nothing irrational about it. But the general term is to call these a phobia. Now, here's something you need to know. As we move on to the first term, which is the dark, a lot of people are afraid of the dark, or they are scared of the dark, or they have a fear of the dark. The most common phrase would be to say that we are afraid of the dark. I'm not going to give you the long scientific name for each of these things because we don't actually know them or use them in English. People might know a few. They might know things like agoraphobia or arachnophobia. But generally, we as English speakers don't know that long scientific term with phobia on the end. We might know 2 or 3 of them, but I don't know what the one is for the dark. Someone in the chat will probably mention it. But I thought it would be a good challenge for someone to find out what all of these are called officially and maybe post that in a comment. It would be a lot of work. Anyways, sometimes children are afraid of the dark. I think in this instance, I would use afraid to describe it. They don't like to be in a dark room. Sometimes we'll buy what's called a nightlight. A nightlight is a very small, dim light that we leave on all night, maybe in a hallway or even in a child's room, because they might be afraid of the dark. They might be scared that there's a monster under the bed. So oftentimes children will think that if they hear a sound that maybe there's a monster under their bed. And so they are afraid of the dark. When I was a kid, I was a little bit afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark now. Some people are afraid of snakes. Some people are scared of snakes. I personally do not like snakes. In Ontario, Canada, we do not have any poisonous snakes or is it venomous snakes? I think it's venomous. Our snakes are not harmful. In fact, the only snake that lives around here is about this long. It's very, very tiny. It's called a gardener snake. And there was actually one in our house 2 days ago, and I picked it up with gloves and I took it outside and let it go in the field. So I'm not afraid of little snakes, but I would be afraid of really, really big snakes. I am not. In fact, having this picture here makes me a little bit afraid. So I am afraid of snakes. Spiders. So spiders come in all different sizes. And I'll tell you a story about this. I'm not afraid of spiders. Many people are afraid of spiders. But when I went to South Africa, in the place where I stayed, there was a spider in the corner of the room, and I think it was this big. I had never seen a spider that big before. So I was a little bit afraid of the spider at that point in time. So spiders are another thing that people are sometimes afraid of. Heights. So if you've watched any of my other English lessons, you'll know that I am afraid of heights. I am scared of heights. I do not like going up really, really high. On my farm, I have 2 large structures called silos. When I was a teenager, I would climb up to the top because my dad would say, go up and fix something. And I would go up, and I wasn't afraid of heights. But at a certain point in my life, I started to not like heights at all. I became afraid of heights, I think in my 20s. I think I became afraid of heights because I almost fell off a building once. I was helping build a building, and I was letting a rope down. And as I was letting it down, someone on the ground pulled the rope, and I almost fell off the building, but I didn't. And I think in that moment, I became afraid of heights. Yes, I definitely do not like being up high. I'm not sure what the person in this picture is doing, but I would never do that. So here's one where we do use the official term. Claustrophobia, or being claustrophobic, is a fear of being in a small space. Some people don't like being in an elevator because they are claustrophobic. Do you want me to say that a few more times? They are claustrophobic. So when you have claustrophobia, it means you are claustrophobic. It means you do not like small spaces. I don't really like small spaces, but they don't bother me too much. But I don't mind being in elevators and things like that. I think sometimes when I'm in a really small car with lots of other people, I feel a little bit claustrophobic because it feels very, very crowded. And some people have a fear of flying. So some people are scared of flying, or they are afraid of flying. I love flying. I love the feeling of getting pushed back in my seat when the plane takes off. And I love the feeling of being in the air. Even though I'm afraid of heights, I actually like flying. That's kind of strange, isn't it? You would think that because I'm afraid of heights, I would be afraid of flying, but I'm not. I actually really, really enjoy flying. Thunder and lightning. So yesterday there was a lot of thunder and lightning outside. We got a lot of rain yesterday. In fact, the picture I took, the thumbnail for this video lesson, is actually me outside, and there was thunder and lightning all around. So I quickly took a picture. I'm not afraid of thunder and lightning, but I do find it fascinating. I love to watch thunder. You can't really see thunder. I love to watch lightning and listen to thunder from a safe place, okay? But some people, especially children, are afraid of thunder or afraid of lightning. Oscar is actually afraid of thunder. The only time that Oscar will abandon Jen is if it starts to thunder. He'll come to the house by himself and he'll kind of scratch on the door to be let in. Oscar does not like thunder at all. So sometimes Jen will be working on the flower farm and there will be thunder in the distance, and Oscar, who is a little bit afraid, will actually come and scratch on the door, and then one of the kids or myself will let him in. Some people have a fear of being alone. Some people really like being around other people, and they just do not enjoy being by themselves. This can be especially common for people who are getting older because their friends start to die. Their friends pass away. I once knew a man who lived by himself in an old age home. I actually fixed his computer for him. And he was 94 years old, and everyone he knew in the world that was around the same age as him had passed away. And he very much had a fear of being alone. So, what was interesting is he often had computer problems. And when I went to fix them, they didn't really exist. And eventually I thought, I think he's calling me once a month because he just is afraid of being alone. He likes talking to me while I'm there. So I ended up fixing his computer for several months for free. And then eventually he did pass away. His name was Ernie. He was a really cool guy. But yes, I think he was afraid of being alone. His children were still alive, but they didn't visit him very often. Ghosts. So we just talked about ghosts. Ghosts would, of course, be an imaginary thing in my mind, but ghosts are like people who have died, who kind of come back and haunt the earth or haunt a building. If you like watching horror movies, sometimes you might watch a horror movie that has ghosts in it. I don't think ghosts exist. I must admit, though, sometimes when you hear strange sounds in the night, it makes you wonder if they do exist. And I will go back to my previous statement. I'm not afraid of ghosts, but if I did see a ghost, I would probably be afraid. It would probably scare me quite a bit if I saw a ghost. Death. So some people are afraid of dying, and I would say that probably most people are afraid of dying. It's not fun to think about life being over. I think because life is so full and rich, the thought of dying is very troublesome for some people, and some people are afraid of dying. They might be afraid of dying because they don't know, they aren't sure what comes next, whether life ends or whether there's an afterlife. They might be afraid of dying because they don't want to leave their loved ones behind. So, for instance, I'm afraid of dying. If I die young, then Jen won't have me anymore. So I'm afraid of dying because I don't want to leave Jen and the kids on their own. So there are many reasons to be afraid of death or afraid of dying. This is not a happy topic. Hopefully the next one's happier. Maybe. Mice. Some people are afraid of mice. The classic thing that happens in a TV show or in a movie is if someone sees a mouse, they jump up on a chair. Okay. Now, mice can climb chairs. I don't know if people know that. I'm not afraid of mice, but I don't like mice. I'm certainly not scared of mice. But generally, if you're watching TV, if there is a mouse, someone on the TV show or in the movie will jump up on a chair. Someone else might grab a broom and try to kind of shoo the mouse out the door, or maybe hit it with the broom. I'm not sure. We have mice in our house, and we do set mouse traps, not because we're afraid of mice, but because they're a little bit annoying. I think a few people in my house might be afraid of mice, but I'm not going to mention who. I'm not. Although if one ran over my foot while I was doing a live stream, I might scream. I would probably be like, a mouse just ran over my foot. Dogs. So there's different kinds of dogs. If I saw this dog with his ball out playing, I would not be afraid of this dog. But a friend of mine was out running a few months ago, and a dog bit her. There was a large dog in a yard barking, and as she ran by that house, the dog came out and bit her. And that certainly reminds me that I'm afraid of big, vicious, mean dogs. So when a dog is vicious, it barks and it tries to bite you. When a dog is mean, it barks and it tries to bite you. I do not like big, mean dogs. Actually, I'm even a little bit afraid of small, mean dogs. I think I'm afraid of any dog that barks a lot and tries to bite me. I would be afraid of them. But some people are just afraid of dogs in general. They have a fear of dogs. Sharks. So I think it's Shark Week right now on Discovery Channel. I'm not sure if you watch a lot of TV, but Shark Week is a week where there's a lot of shows about sharks. Some people, when they go to the beach, they are afraid of sharks. I actually think everyone is afraid of sharks, except maybe the scientists who study them or the people who make nature documentaries maybe are not afraid of sharks. But certainly some people are afraid of sharks. Most people are afraid of sharks. I would not go swimming if I saw a shark fin in the water. I would be very, very afraid, and there is no way I would go in the water. That would just be too much blood. So I didn't want to find a picture with actual blood. So I found this picture of a potato stabbing another potato and ketchup coming out. Some people are afraid of blood, and we actually have some people who will faint at the sight of blood. Okay. So I actually, when I was in a science class in grade 10 or 11, so when I was 16 or 17 years old, we had to take a little sample of blood from our finger. We had to poke our finger and put it on a microscope slide and then look at it through the microscope. And a friend of mine who was this really tough guy, he poked his finger and a little bit of blood came out and he fainted. He just fell over, totally unconscious. So he passed out. So he was someone who you would describe him as fainting at the sight of blood. So some people, it's not that they're afraid of blood, they have an aversion to seeing blood and they might faint at the sight of blood. Interestingly enough, that friend of mine who fainted at the sight of blood, he became a police officer. So I'm not sure how he handles that fear now, but that is his current job. Some people are afraid of water, more afraid of drowning. Drowning is when you go under the water and you can't get up in time and you die in the water. So I would say people are actually more afraid of drowning. They're more afraid of drowning than actually the water. So my mom, for instance, doesn't really like swimming very much because when she was younger, she was out swimming in a lake or a pool, and she had trouble getting back to the shore or the edge, and it was very traumatic for her. So she has a little bit of a fear of water, fear of swimming, fear of drowning. Some people have a fear of going to the dentist. I'm kind of afraid of the dentist. I know the dentist is helping me. I know it's good to get your teeth cleaned. I know that, but I really don't like being in that chair and having someone scrape my teeth with that pointy thing. I'm a little bit afraid of the dentist, but I overcome my fear every 6 to 9 months, and I go to the dentist and I get my teeth cleaned and they fix my cavities. So even though I have a fear of going to the dentist, even though I'm scared of the dentist, I usually try and overcome my fear. Needles. So this is a pretty common one right now. I'll tell you this about myself. I don't like getting needles. I've gotten both shots now for my vaccination. And both times they say, are you afraid of needles, or are you afraid of getting a needle? And I say, no, but I'm not going to watch. Like, I don't want to see you put the needle in my arm. In fact, right now in Canada, there are a lot of TV commercials. There are a lot of advertisements encouraging people to get vaccinated. And they keep showing people getting a needle in their arm. And I keep going like, don't show me that. I don't want to see that. But some people are afraid of needles. Some people are afraid of crowds. I wouldn't say that I'm afraid of crowds. I don't have a fear of being in a large crowd. But I do feel a little bit, I think I have a bit of a fear of social situations. I don't mind being at a concert listening to music in a crowd, but I don't totally enjoy going to an event where there's a couple hundred people and I have to talk to a lot of people. That's not as enjoyable for me. But some people don't like crowds. It's kind of the opposite of being afraid of being alone. Some people don't enjoy being in a crowd. Some people are afraid to go outside. I do not have this fear. If you watch any of my English lessons, you'll know that generally this lesson, the Friday morning live lesson, is the only one I do inside. I am not afraid to go outside. I actually like going outside to do my lessons. So tomorrow, hopefully the weather is nice and I will do the live question and answer lesson outside. And if you watch any videos on my second channel or on this main channel, they're almost all done outside. It's rare that I do a video inside. I only do that if the weather is really, really bad. But some people definitely are afraid of going outside. They like to stay in their house at all times. So some people are afraid of pain. I definitely am afraid of pain. Probably my biggest concern when I was having surgery was that it was going to hurt a lot. And then afterwards, it did hurt a lot. This whole side of my body hurt for a couple months, and I didn't like that. So I wouldn't say I'm afraid of pain, but I definitely I have an aversion to pain, and I've used that word a couple of times. When you have an aversion to something, it means you don't easily choose to experience it, okay? But some people are afraid of pain. Some people refuse to get surgery because they are afraid of the pain that it will cause, the physical pain. So there is something called the fear of failure. And a fear of failure is when you are afraid that if you do something, you might not succeed. People sometimes have a fear of failure because they need to do something that people can see them doing, and they don't want people to see them fail. This is probably a good way to describe a fear of having an English conversation. If you're an English learner, you might actually be afraid of failing. You're afraid that when you have the conversation, you won't be able to think of the words. You're afraid that when you have the conversation, you'll say something dumb or you'll look silly or any of those things. So hopefully you're talking to someone who doesn't make you feel like a failure. Hopefully you don't have a fear of failure. And the way to get over a fear of failure, one way is to recognize that failing is the path to learning. You don't learn anything without failing. And so once you get used to failing, you just get better at it. In fact, here's a great example. I got a new camera and I'm using it for all of my videos. And the other day I did a video on my second channel and it was overexposed. It was way too bright. But I just said to myself, well, lesson learned. I made a mistake. It wasn't a total failure, but it still was a small failure. But I just uploaded it anyways. People don't mind because they could still hear me. But sometimes fear of failure can paralyze people. What we mean by that is it can make you not able to do what you want to do. Some people are afraid of germs. They're afraid of bacteria. They're afraid of viruses. They're afraid of any place that isn't really, really clean. I have a little bit of a fear of germs. I like the kitchen counter to be clean. I like everyone to use proper food handling when they're in the kitchen. Like if you cut meat on a cutting board, you shouldn't cut vegetables on the same cutting board. So I have a bit of a fear, but I think it's a practical fear. But there are some people that, are just really afraid of germs and bacteria, and they wash their hands a lot and they clean a lot. I think I'm more afraid of germs and bacteria than Jen, but that's a discussion for another day. I'm trying to convince Jen to do another video with me in the next month or so. It might not be till September, we'll see. But maybe we'll talk about our fears or something like that. But yeah, definitely people are afraid of germs. By the way, germs, it's just another term for bacteria, okay? So when you don't clean the kitchen counter, there's lots of germs on there. And it's another word for, when you spread illnesses, like people get their germs on you. Right now, everyone wears a mask because we don't want to get our germs on each other. Public speaking. So this is something that, okay, I'm not afraid of public speaking if you mean teaching my class or talking in front of people who I regularly talk in front of. But if I need to speak somewhere in front of 100 or 200 people that I don't know, I would get a little bit nervous, but I would still be able to do it. I don't mind talking in front of people. But for some people, public speaking, they have a debilitating fear of public speaking. When your fear is debilitating, it means you just can't do it. You're just so afraid of that thing that you will not do it. So I don't have that. I have a normal amount of nervousness if I have to talk in front of people. But remember, I've taught for over 20 years. So my job is talking. So going up and talking in front of people is a little easier for me. Still not totally easy though. Some people are afraid of being touched. These people are probably very happy right now in our current world. But some people love hugging and kissing. Some people love high-fiving and shaking hands. And some people would just prefer that people don't touch them, okay? I myself, I'm not afraid of touch. I'm not a huggy person though. What I mean by that is I don't go around hugging people. If I haven't seen someone for a long time, I usually say hi, but I don't usually hug them. But I'm not afraid of people touching me, but some people are. I don't have this. This was one of the ones I found while I was researching this lesson. Some people are afraid of large things. I think when I see an elephant at the zoo in a cage, I'm not afraid of it. But if I was out in the wild, I think I would be a little bit afraid. They are enormous. I did see elephants at Kruger Park in South Africa, and I was a little bit afraid of them. They're really big, especially when you see a whole herd of elephants. Birds. These are Canadian geese. The Canada goose is not a nice animal if you get close to it. They will try to attack you. They kind of come at you and make a funny sound and they get their wings out. So even though in a lot of my videos, there's Canadian geese across the river and they're nice and it looks like beautiful nature, I am actually a little bit afraid of them, especially if you go to a park where they are very familiar with humans, okay? So Canadian geese that are used to humans, when people feed them all the time, sometimes they can get a little bit ornery was the word I wanted to use. They start to squawk and honk and run at you and flap their wings and their mouth is open. You can tell I'm describing from real experience. Fire. Some people are afraid of fire. I actually enjoy fire when it's a campfire, but there was a time many years ago where if you look in my videos, if you see the field along my river, there was a time where that grass was dry about 20 years ago, and I accidentally lit the field on fire, and the fire department had to come and help me put it out. That was very terrifying. And so I would say this, I am definitely afraid of fire that is out of control. I love having a little campfire. I like candles, although usually we use electric ones now. So I'm not afraid of fire in that sense when it's a controlled fire that someone is having. But certainly when my field was on fire, it was terrifying. I was certainly afraid of fire at that time. And then technology. Some people are afraid of technology. I find generally older people are afraid of technology. It can be very challenging if you are over the age of 65 or 70 to learn how to use new things. And I'll actually admit that for me, it's even hard to learn new things. I never thought I would say this in life, but I think I used to learn things quickly. I find now it's harder to learn new things all the time, mostly because I have less time. I don't think there's anything wrong with my brain. I think it's hard for me to learn new things because I have less time. And that can be a little bit frightening, right? I'm a little afraid of a year where there's so much new technology that I can't learn how to use it fast enough to use in my classroom.